Hello and very warm welcome to yet another episode of Strengther, an initiative of CXO Digital Pulse. In this series, we delve into the compelling stories of extraordinary women who serve as a catalyst to change. Today, we are excited to share the inspiring journey of Mahasweta, a fervent leader in technology, marketing, and an avid endurance runner. Join us as we explore how her passion, resilience, and dedication have paved her path to success, both in her professional endeavors as well as her personal pursuit of endurance running. A very warm welcome, Shweta.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure speaking to you and looking forward to this conversation.
Great. So, Shweta, before we head to our really deep dive questions to understand your journey, we'll start with a rapid fire round. So,
Okay.
starting with that segment, so one word to describe the Sahara Desert.
Beautiful.
Great. The hardest part of training, the early mornings or the long distances?
The rest days.
Okay, that's the hardest.
Yes, it is.
One item you couldn't live without during the Marathon des Sables.
Water.
Okay. The biggest misconception people have about ultra marathons.
That you need to run slow.
Okay. Your mantra during the toughest part of a race.
The only way forward is to step forward.
Okay. What relaxes you after a long run?
A nice cup of black coffee.
Great. And that too without sugar.
Of course. No milk, no sugar.
Great. So, Shweta, now delving to the main questions where we get to know more about your journey to your achievements. We understand that you grew up in a very traditional Bengali household in West Bengal, Durgapur, where certain paths were laid out for women, and making a career was definitely wasn't a priority. And yet you became the first among all to complete higher education, and for that you even moved to Bangalore. So there were a lot many stereotypes that you have broken. So how did you navigate your aspirations, and what motivated you to break these stereotypes?
Uh, so, just to give you some context about where I was born, as you said, Durgapur, but thankfully my parents sent me to a convent school. So I think they did value education. My mom was only been till class 10th and she didn't study further. She got married. She was in a 5 girl child family, so my grandfather thought that getting her married is as best as he could do. Though my dad's a lawyer, and I'm born in a joint family, so I remember when I finished my 10th exam and I got my results, my grandmom said, oh, now she's finished 10th, so you should get her married. And I remember through my 11th and 12th board exams, I'm like struggling to get through my engineering or courses, and here mom and dad are unendingly getting marriage propositions from every other relative. So that was context. uh, I have seen traditionally in my family, all my cousins were typically married by the time they turned 18, 19. Like most of them had barely either done their graduations, or those who really wanted to maybe came back to for their final exams after they were married, some with even kids. So that was the context, and that's where I have seen everybody, where a traditional woman is either like, you do basic education was the least of your priorities, and then you're aligned to be cooking and doing stuff at home. I did them too. I mean, I think I learned to be around the kitchen and mom and help her when I was very young, early on. No discredit there, but I don't think having a profession was something that anybody ever imagined would is a women's charter. Now that's one side. The other side is because of my school, I saw these amazing teachers who were very different from what women I see in my family. They were having a full-time job. Some of their kids were in school. For some, we used to go to, take maybe extra classes or coaching. So they were completely dedicated to a full-time profession, and yet they did everything else that they did for their family, like their kids, and having they were doing both. So I think that was the first time when I realized that, what, this is also an option, and nobody else in my family had ever pursued it. And so very early on, I realized that the exit out of this ecosystem that they thought should be the way it should be is education. And therefore, I think it was very, from then I knew that if I have to do something, I have to get my degrees, I have to get out of here, pursue further studies. Thankfully, I would say, whatever strength my parents had, and especially my mom in that case, I think that she couldn't do it herself. She didn't have the courage to break those barriers herself, but she definitely wanted to pave that path out for me. So she and my dad were both very convinced that I go to Bangalore and I pursue my studies. They thought it would be safe, so that was the big plunge they gave. But for me, I think I always knew that education is the way ahead. And therefore, I always charged that path, saying I have to get my scores in place. I have to know what I want to do. I have to crack my entrance exams and get into admission, because there is no other way. It's not like there was no plan B for me. Unfortunately, it's like, okay, if I don't become a medical doctor, maybe I will go and do research. No, if you don't get through your scores, you're only going to get married. So you better get this right. So I think for me, it was very simple that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what my journey has been, because there was no looking back. Because if you look back, then your dream is like, it's not even distant, it's just gone. There is no alternative.
Mhm. So
And
that really gave you the push to
yeah,
actually move ahead with this higher education.
it's like this, that imagine if you're in a tunnel, and then if you have to just charge ahead, because that's the only way you reach the other end of the tunnel. Otherwise, you're just stuck there in the dark. So I
Mhm.
think for me it was as simple as that I had to find that light. And not just, today, what is amazing, what I feel good about, is leave apart that I am the first woman in my family to have a master's degree, have a professional career. It has opened up those barriers for everybody after me. So my cousins, if you look at them, somebody is a doctor, somebody is working, somebody is, like, people are sitting in Sweden and across the world. I think it opened that vision for them, first of all, that, oh, this is also possible. And I
Mhm.
think it also paved the path. They didn't have to break that wall saying, oh, you know what, girls don't do this, or women don't do this. So I think what I feel most amazed is that how it paved the path for my future generations to come.
And I think it all needs is just one example. And you had set that example, and automatically that path got paved for rest of them. So that was definitely incredible. And Shweta, after this, you started your fitness regime to lose weight, which was around the year 2000.
Yes.
And the entire focus was just to lose the weight, for which you also joined a gym. And soon this transitioned, or say moved to the pursuit of having a healthy lifestyle. And eventually it evolved into a passion for running. So, however, when the pandemic came, it brought significant challenges also for you, including a broken foot. And this was the also time when you experienced a professional setback as well in your professional journey. How did you manage to keep your spirits up and stay focused on your goals, especially during pandemic, which was definitely a low time across the globe, and there were certain additional challenges which came on within your life?
So I think this was just right before the pandemic, when I think I had these, it's like I used to jokingly say that I am going to the stage, when I touch gold, it will turn into coal, because everything that could go wrong in one's life is going wrong. And then, of course, pandemic hit right following after. In fact, during that time when I had the broken foot, I was going to a career downtown. I almost lost my father. He was on a ventilator in the ICU, and, like, for 5 days he was in ventilator. We didn't know whether he would survive, and all of this was happening at the same time. Like, it's like every day it was like, okay, now what? And then I lost friends, during, or family, and so it was like, it was just those times, I think. And it was not just me, everybody else was also going through. So from 2019, starting through the pandemic, I think I had a whole year of, where things could as dark as it could get. But the good thing of that time, I think, and I look back and feel, is that it just transformed me. Like, when we talk, because I work in technology, so I'm going to give you some examples of technology. Maybe is that whole digital transformation process, where you remember when I started marketing in like this whole data center and hard disk and hard drive era, where today everything is all about cloud and SaaS models and stuff. So I think it was exactly like that. That whole transformation model of discovering the truth of life. I'm also a single child, so I realize that I have so much on me to deal with, because my parents have only me and I only have them. It's a bond which is very special, and yet it's very shaky at times. So I think, to keep myself motivated, I've always had this mantra, and I've obviously learned this over the years, is that this too shall pass. It's like after the Sunday, Monday is invariably going to come. But then the good part of Monday is that Friday is also going to come. So I think, if we could just stay put at that time, it is painful, but just to accept that and not fret over it and try to get out of it. But you cannot, because you have to leave these 18 hours of the Monday for Tuesday to come, and then eventually Friday will come. I think I learned that, and I think that is what helped me to stay. And I used to be living alone, and I like didn't know what to do. Thankfully, because of my exercise and fitness and workout, I think that was the only thing that I could do. I had a job. I was working with a startup later part of the pandemic, so I think, which kind of uh, kept me busy and occupied. But the only mantra of that thing that really, really helped me survive was that this too shall pass. It's like somebody gave me this really amazing example, and I always have that vision when I go through a struggle time, is that if a dog is fallen into a pit, you know what the dog does? It keeps scraping without realizing. The more it's scraping, the more it is scraping the hole deeper, and you keep falling into it. As against, if the dog can know that you just stand still there, don't go further deeper into the ditch, somebody will either fetch you or you'll find a way. I think for us it is exactly like that, and instead of trying to fret and try to get out of it, if we're showing a little bit of resilience and patience and grit, to just overcome that day. We all have those bad days, right? There are days when you come to work and you're like, oh, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore, or whatever. We have our own devils that come pounding us. All I do is just maybe ignore it a little bit, just do as best I can do for that day, and then the
Mhm.
next day is just fine. So I think that's been my mantra for a very long time now, that this too shall pass.
Definitely. And as it says, it's the low points in our life, the challenging times, which actually craft you as a much more stronger person towards success, because then you are ready for another low. And
One,
once you hit the pit, the only way is up.
yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of these great athletes who are really, because I'm into sports, I kind of admire them. Is that they always say that what you do during your difficult times is what defines you. So I think I really take a lot of pride in that statement, that when I'm going through a challenging time, how am I behaving? Am I being a wreck? Am I being like this horrible, horrendous person around me, or am I like saying, yeah, you know what, today is not my day, it's okay. So i think that's what defines me. And also, if you're in a sport, you go through experiences every day, because not every day every run is great. There are days when you just don't feel like, there are days when you are just not feeling up to it, there are days when you are lazy, your body is tired, your mind is not there, you're beating this every day. But what do? You still go out and you still do, and you do as best as you can do. I think that is very, very important, that you should be knowing that this is as best as you can do. Be easy on yourself, and it'll just pass by.
True. And you had a very great support, I say, in the form of run that you had picked up for yourself. And you have taken it to so much above for yourself, the levels, because eventually you took up as a full-time one also, I would say, running as a lifestyle, and you started competing various marathons. And I would say completing Marathon Disables was a fantabulous achievement for you. um, while you were preparing and for all these marathons, if you can just help us understand the physical and mental preparations that are required for these endurance test, especially under the condition where you have no network, no connectivity, when you're competing these marathons and you need to be self sufficient? What preparation goes to achieve all this?
So, when we think of endurance, and especially endurance sport, everybody talks about the physical endurance. Trust you me, that's the easiest. I mean, if you're a little patient, give it a little time, everybody can build into endurance. As human beings, it's a skill we all have. It's just that we don't develop it. Like if you see the kids, they're constantly running like 10 hours and they're never getting tired. And as we grow up, we lose that habit, and therefore at some point, if you ask somebody who's in their 20s or 30s and say, oh my god, you know what, I really cannot do this, but as a kid, it for them, they never think of like that. So I think the endurance part, for whole part, the physical training is easiest according to me. If you're disciplined, if you are committed to it, I think it'll come easily. Now the challenge is these two aspects, the discipline and the commitment, which is a mental part of it. So the tougher part of any of these endurance sport training, especially like these ultra races or these long distance races, I think is the mental preparation. And that mental preparation and the physical preparation are very closely bonded. You cannot do with either or, you've got to train both. And I have I think I have, like I said, that from early on as a childhood, I knew that I have to, the only way I can get out is to kind of push at it, be at it. I do not have a choice to give up and say, oh, you know what, it's okay. It wouldn't be okay at that time, right? So I think the same goes for my running training. I just have these things that I just do not like to tell my coach, give excuses. I don't believe in this whole concept of excuses, because I think it is the worst that one can do to themselves. Like my coach is in the US. If I don't train, say for 1 week, my coach is not going to know. He's
Mhm.
not seeing me every day. I chat with him two times in the week, and I can tell him anything. I can tell him, oh, you know what, I just didn't, I couldn't feel like whatever. What is he going to say? He's going to say, oh, you know what, you got to train. But who am I cheating? I'm actually fooling myself, right? I mean, my coach is getting paid, he's giving the plan, but I'm making a big fool of myself. So when we give excuses, we don't realize that it's not the other person is really not getting bothered. It's only you who is causing your harm. So I think I have learned to not cheat myself. I do what I can do, and I really really develop over these years. I think I have always had this skill that I will not give an excuse. There could be a genuine reason, like 2 days 3 days ago, I was down with fever. I had two runs, I couldn't do two, I did one, and I told my coach, I said, coach, I've not been well. I couldn't do this run. And my coach said, don't run if you're unwell, kinds, because he knows that I'm not going to cheat. So I think that is one thing that I would like to say, that live by excuse, don't live by excuses, live by exhibits, as I like to say. The second is that I keep these I like to measure, in the sense that I keep a very close track of how my day is going. Did I train? How did I feel at the training? Did I like a check mark for myself? And when I do that, it really helps me to keep control. It's like in in MBA we are taught, right, that if you cannot measure, you cannot monitor. So I like to measure how it is all going, so that by the end of the day I can take stock of saying, okay, you know what, I had 5 bad runs this month, really. I mean, what happened? Like, maybe I'm not keeping well, maybe I'm not recovering well, maybe I'm not eating well, maybe I'm too stressed at work, or like whatever, too stressed with this whole running thing, I don't know. So I think I kind of like to keep this measure for myself when it comes to these things. uh, and I also think that one got to develop this whole skill of resilience and grit, because it is not easy. People do not come and support you. You get a lot of resistance all the time, resistance from your family, from your husband, children, in-laws. One statement, one kid will say, oh mom, you were not there, and then everything just going to wash away. So that whole concept of guilt versus grit is very very important. I've also tried to build an ecosystem where I do this at a time when it doesn't disrupt anybody's life. Like I go to run at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, because that is the time when nobody is needing me. It is my time, and I'm very very it's very precious to me, and I'm very very possessive about it. The other thing is about choices. I can choose to show up at a late night party and give an excuse for not running, versus I can say, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, I cannot come to this party, I have a run tomorrow. Because what do I enjoy more? Do I enjoy being in that party, or do I enjoy being in the run? So I think it's about choices. So just to summarize what I said is, discipline, building resilience in grit, and making choices, and having your priorities in place are very, very important. So I think I have trained myself for these things psychologically, to kind of be ready for these things. Now, for a race like Marathon des Sables, where there is no connectivity, where there is no way I could reach out to people or do get any like pep talk from anybody, I think I prepared myself. I carried, I picked up, so this was a 7 day race, right? So I carried 7 people, and I reached out to them and I said, give me one message for each day. Like, so 7 people gave me 7 messages, which I could go and read. And I took paper cuttings of those papers. I have some friend who said, no, I'm going to give you for all 7 days. My partner gave me for all 7 days. So, sum total, when I went there, every day I had like 3 messages that I could read from each of these people. And those messages were so inspiring. It just held you to that bond, which is beyond any physical or any kind of digital connectivity. It's that bond of emotion and love with your friends and family, I think, which stayed. And I think that really, really helped me through that. Now, during the race also, it's a lonely sport. Running is also a lonely sport. Like, if you're running in a city, it's very different, but trail running is very, very different. The number of people who are attending a sport at any given time is like in hundreds only, unlike in big races there are like thousands of them. So you train. What do you do those times? How do you, there are times when I'm probably having conversations with other people. There are times when I remember during MDS, I played antakshari with myself, because it was so long and sometimes you don't know what to do. And I did all kinds of fun. I kept counting, saying, okay, for 1 kilometer, how many times I have to count from 1 to 1,000 to reach that number. So you just find those sweet tricks and spots. But the point is that you got to prepare for it. You cannot go there showing up that, oh, you know what, now I've come, I don't know what to do with it. So I think I prepared myself for all those aspects. I know that the night part of the run, of the long day run, would be the toughest. So I carried a little music, like those USB stick music, and something on my phone which didn't need connectivity, which I played through the night, because I knew the night would be the toughest for me. So I kind of it's not just physical preparation. I think psychological and emotional preparation are equally important when you go out for a race like that.
Completely agree, because physical is something that you can train yourself, going to the gym or having a coach, but that mental strength is something that NDS tests to the core. And if that mental strength and support of your family members in the smallest or the biggest form is something that keeps you going, as very aptly elaborated, I would say, Shweta. And one thing from this, while you have too much of time alone with yourself, where you get all these small things, like as you mentioned, playing antakshari, or even contemplating some thoughts. So reflecting on that journey, you had like good 6 days all alone. What lessons have you learned from your persistence, endurance, or say as the human spirit, if you would like to share with us?
I think the biggest learning I had was, about focus.
Okay.
And like you said, that for an MDS, I also think that, why I love that race so much. It's a race I call as a, bare minimum, because it's self-supported. So you only carry what you need. There's nothing extra. And I remember when I was preparing for the race, my mom asked, one day called and said, oh, you know what, you're only going to carry that much. What if you need something and you don't have it? I said, Mom, that's the whole point. That, if you need something and you don't have it, we today have the access to go and fetch it. Like, whatever you need. Like, there's so many times you want to say have a certain dish and you don't have a vegetable. All you do is, you do Blinkit or Swiggy, Instamart or whatever, and in 10 minutes you have it and you're having it. In growing up times, we didn't have that luxury. We ate what was available at home.
True.
So I think this was one of those things that, you go with what you think you might need. You have ABCD, you might need EF. You don't have it, but how do you survive with that only? You only have that much resources. So I think it teaches me optimization of what I have. It also, the biggest lesson it taught me was focus. One of the biggest reasons I think there was not one time in those 7 days when I questioned saying, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Should I do it? I don't think I can make it. I will never come back again, etc., etc. All I did was to keep focus on saying, oh, know what? I have to finish this day. I have to finish this day. I have to finish day 3. I have to finish D4. Till I got my medal, I don't think I really, really thought of anything else in my life. Now, the beauty of that was that, you know what? I had only one pair of clothes to wear. Every day I raced on the same dress. I didn't have to make any choice to say, oh, which shorts, green shorts, blue shorts, yellow shorts. Just had one set. You come, you dry it, pack it up in your bag, and keep it next day morning, you wear it. I had My food was packed, every day's necessity was packed in day packs, like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. You take out from that day, you whatever is there as in that breakfast, you take that, you eat it. Whatever is there for your race nutrition, you take it, eat it. Same goes for lunch and dinner. The point is that you don't have to make choices. You didn't have to think. Your mind was completely empty because we didn't need to do these useless things. So when your mind is just focused on one thing, you put all your energies, good, bad, ugly, evil, all that brute force into helping you achieve what you have set out for. The biggest challenge we face in our world today is distraction. Even when you're working and you're in mid of saying reviewing this content piece, I'm a marketer, and then suddenly the phone buzzes and you're like, oh, you know what, so and so is calling, let me just talk. Oh, you know what, let's see what that's a message came, let me just chat. You've just completely lost, and when you go back, you've lost the flow. Where do you start? It makes us a non-productive. So I think that was the biggest learning. I've come back and I've tried to simplify my life. I've come back and said, okay, you know what, I don't need two wardrobes full of cupboards. I can do with 50, like, I've reduced it to probably 50-60%. My plan is to reduce it to like 25-30%. I don't think I need more than that. I'm trying to make changes and saying that, I don't need to have 10 colors. I can have my colors for my running stuff because it doesn't not important, but professionally, otherwise I can just have two colors. Like, look at Steve Jobs. He didn't spend saying, yo, you know what, I want to wear beige and whatever. He only had one set of colors which he always wore. So I think that is number one. The second thing I realized is that there is the best tool a human being can develop is resilience. In my this journey of almost 20 years of fitness, and even my professional and from the background I come to here, I think the one thing I got in galore was resistance from everywhere. Nobody supported me financially, nobody supported me emotionally. My parents, especially my father, thought that, you know what, I don't know what is she doing. My ex-husband hated everything. I heard the lousiest of the comments all my life. But you know what, I always showed up and did what I had to do. Was it happier all the time? No, it wasn't. It was painful to kind of be fighting against your own odd. My dad would look at my food plate and say, you know what, oh, I don't know, what is the point, why are you eating this, you should eat this, that, whatever. I think I just lived through all of that, and I did MDS. And when I finished MDS, my dad, comment he told me, I was sitting in Morocco airport, I was speaking to him, and he told me, he said, I wish I'd supported you more. And I think that was a true example of what resilience can give it to you. And I say this, that resilience is inversely proportional to resistance. The more resilient you're going to be, the lesser resistance you will face. And there's always going to be resistance, but if you can keep building your resilience up and up and up, that resistance will keep going down and down and down, because you will stop. People will realize two ways. People will realize that you're doing what you're doing because you really love doing this, and you will also realize that it'll start impacting you less. Today, when my dad says anything about my food, I'm like, I just smile and say, yeah, it's okay. So I think those are two of my greatest lessons I learned out of MDS.
Great, Shweta. It was definitely such an inspiring and incredible journey of yours, and this conversation really lightened up us on various aspects, starting from perseverance to resilience to a very sustainable, healthy living, I would say. And the best is avoiding the parody of choices, because we don't need so many choices. It
Yeah.
was great talking to you, Shweta, and here we call it a wrap. And your story is a testament of the power of passion, perseverance, resilience, and relentless pursuit to that one goal that you have in life. And this is incredible to continue the path that you have set for yourself.
Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking to you. I hope whoever listens or reads this takes away something that can have a positive influence in my life. I think that's a goal that I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, audience, for tuning into Strengther, brought to you by CXO Digital Pals. We look forward to bringing you more such stories of remarkable women who are driving the change and leading it to another level. Please follow us on more episodes. Until then, keep pushing boundaries and chasing your dreams.